Welcome back to Early Action with Mossing and Patel. It's week 5 kickoff today. We're recording this right before the Thursday night game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going on the road to face the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. We're officially
What?
of the year. That's crazy. 4 weeks already. And it's time to hand out some quarterly awards. Let's hand out some hardware. Moss, I see you got some hardware behind you right now. What is that?
Yes, sir. A little bit of wrestling action.
All right.
Uh, National championship.
All
A
right,
little here there.
casual. Yeah, it's casual. One
Casual.
is a world class athlete. The other one is a world class fan. What you got?
World class fan with a world class mustache.
Yeah, I got that going for me. So Gardner Minshew, Aaron Rodgers hybrid. Let's start off with offensive rookie of the year. Now, at first, I think the heavy favorite was Joe Burrow. Last couple of weeks, Justin Herbert's been making a lot of noise. He threw some dimes last week. For me, I'm still going Joe Burrow here. He's one of the only quarterbacks in NFL history to go 3 straight games with 300 yards passing. And I think not only between week 1 and week 4 is he the offensive rookie of the year, but I think he's going to keep it going the rest of the season. I think Herbert does do well, but Cincinnati's going to be passing the ball a lot. And those numbers are just going to get better and better. And he's got some weapons there. What are you thinking right now so far for Joe Burrow and your own pick for offensive rookie of the year?
Yeah, Joe Burrow's been phenomenal in the first part of the year. Herbert has really taken some shine away from him, I think, as kind of the shiny new toy. We'll see if Herbert's able to keep it up. Joe Burrow, I think, is going to be phenomenal a year. I think he's a pretty good pick to win defensive or offensive player of the year for the rookies. But I liked Robinson from Jacksonville. Came
Really?
out of nowhere, and he's just
He's the
been
football
getting
darling.
a ton of load.
Yeah. Hey, if you
Ton
pick
of
him up on the wire, you're happy.
yeah, great fantasy player. But I think he's just going to keep racking up numbers for that Jacksonville offense. Um, as you can see through their first couple games, they're not relying on Minshew to throw it a ton, which means they're going to be running it. Which means Robinson's going to keep racking up those numbers, and he's still going to get catches and get numbers that way. So I like Robinson so far early in the year, but I think Burrow's going to end up running away with it by year's end.
Yeah, yeah. I think so far I see what you're saying, but I mean Joe Burrow's top 10 in the NFL right now in passing yards. He has 6 touchdowns in over the past couple of weeks, and only 2 interceptions, which is pretty rare considering he's a rookie and he's in a completely new offense than he was at LSU. And I don't know, they're really passing the ball a lot. Even when they're not down, they're in a empty set. Joe Mixon has not really ran the ball that effectively. I know he had 3 touchdowns last week, but before that, they weren't really running the ball that great. The offensive line is really rough, and the only reason I can see Joe Burrow not winning this year is if his offensive line lets him down, he gets hurt. Let's move on to the defense rookie of the year. To me, this is a no-brainer. Nobody else was close, and it's Chase Young. It's 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. He's been getting QB pressures left and right. I just don't see anyone else competing for this. What about you?
And all those stats are with one fewer game played than everybody else. He's still clear cut even through 3 quarters of the game. He's still the defense player here. There's not much to be said. He's just a dominant edge rusher.
Yeah, and he's going to get lost a little bit in Washington just because they have so much going on with issues not only in the media, with the organization, but Ron Rivera, what he's dealing with on a personal level, and then the whole quarterback carousel they have going on there. That team gets lost, I think, in the news, and Chase Young is one of the best defenders there is in the NFL already. Pro Football Focus has him as the 6th best rusher so far in the NFL this season. The season's still young, but it's going to be hard to see anyone stopping Chase Young. The only way I can see is that they chip in with a tight end and a running back. But this Washington Redskins, or I guess Washington football team, their D line is nothing to mess with. It's the only strong point of their whole roster, to be honest. So it's really going to be hard to even double team Chase Young. So I think those numbers that we talked about a second ago, they're just going to keep going up.
Yeah, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to keep getting pressures on quarterback, keep his nose around the football, find turnovers and force turnovers. Dude's a
Yeah,
game record.
yeah. So I think we're both on Chase Young for the defensive rookie of the year. Let's go on to a little bit more of a strategic award, and that's going to be coach of the year. Now, I think it's going to surprise some people that in the past 10 years, Jason Garrett has just as many Coach of the Year trophies as Bill Belichick. And here's why. Typically, this award is reserved for the coach of the team that improved the most from the previous year. Whichever team made the biggest jump, that coach is just Coach of the Year. It's like that in all sports, and the NFL is no different. It's really not who was the best coach. It's just who's the coach of the team that made the biggest jump from year to year. And I think this year, that's going to be Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills. Last season, they were a playoff team in that AFC East in Brady's last year, which was obviously no joke. And they're competing for that division title all the way up to the final weeks of the season. And this year, I think, with Brady leaving and there being some kind of discomfort in the way the Patriots have been with COVID and the exemption list and all of that, Buffalo's kind of making that jump, maybe becoming that premier team in that division. And they're undefeated. Josh Allen is playing out of his mind right now. That defense was already strong last year. It's not quite up to what it was last year, but it's still dang good. Tre'Davious White, one of the best corners in the game. And I really think Sean McDermott's going to run away with this one.
Yeah, I see to this point how Sean McDermott could have that time. I think he's going to be the rest of the year. I think two dark horse coaches that get it at year's end are Zach Taylor and Ron Rivera. If Ron Rivera can figure out a way to make it to the playoffs with the storylines that have been surrounding him already to this point, with the dysfunctional organization that he's in, I think he'll be a clear-cut favorite because this award is more about storylines rather than how good you are as a coach.
Yep.
Or if Zach Taylor can continue to turn around the Bengals like he has done, keep Joe Burrow throwing for 300 yards a game, staying competitive. Everybody wrote off the Bengals even when they had Joe Burrow. They said, oh, they're still the Bengals. They're still going to stink. But Zach Taylor's been doing a great job with them. They look feisty this year. They look like they actually want to win some games. So those are the two people I have in mind for the end of the year.
Yeah, Zach Taylor's one of those coaches that I think people know, he's the coach of the Bengals, and then they kind of stop right there. They don't really consider what he's done in the past. He was the quarterback's coach for the Rams in the year that Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl. And now I know we could talk about Jared Goff in the past year on this podcast, but he isn't quite the player everyone thought he was going to be out of college. And after Zach left to take over the Bengals job, he struggled in a Sean McVay offense that it's hard to struggle in, So I think he's the guy they want in Cincinnati to lead Joe Burrow. And it kind of shows based on the draft picks they have. They drafted Joe Burrow in the first round. They got T. Higgins in the second out of Clemson, who's becoming Joe Burrow's favorite target. So I think Zach Taylor has a good chance here to do some. It's just tough in that division, though, to rack up the wins. And I think he needs at least 8 wins in order to be qualified for an award like this. And I don't know if he's going to get that with the Steelers and the Ravens in there, then the Browns being 3-1. I don't know if he's going to get all those wins, but I think going forward, he's the coach to look out for.
If he picks up a win or two over the Ravens and Steelers, it's going to really help his case, saying this was the worst team, and now they're beating one of the best teams. So
yeah, it's tough because the
O-line
is rough, but they have a chance, and I think going forward, the Bengals are on the upswing for sure. Let's move on to Comeback Player of the Year. Now, last year, this award went to one Ryan Tannehill, who we all know left the Miami Dolphins. It was kind of a joke. Nobody really took him too seriously. He comes on in relief of Marcus Mariota, posts one of the best years any quarterback has ever had in the NFL history, and he won the award last year. Now, this year, it's a little different because typically it goes to somebody who hasn't played in a long time or somebody who comes back from a horrific injury. So the names that come to mind are, Alex Smith, Cam Newton. I'm actually going in a different direction. I'm going with the Cowboys defensive lineman and outside linebacker Aldon Smith. He went into week 4 as a leading sack getter in the NFL. I think he went down to second after the weekend with over 2.5 sacks this season. He's been out of football for 5 years with, a plethora of off-the-field issues, including some run-ins with the law and with drugs. He's back better than ever. I think people forget that before he left the NFL 5 years ago, he was on track to become one of the best rushers in NFL history, a Hall of Fame career. He's top 3 in the NFL for sacks per game, which is a ridiculous stat. Only person who's active in the NFL who averages more sacks per game is Myles Garrett. And the only other guy, other than Myles Garrett in NFL history, is Lawrence Taylor. So this guy, I think people forgot over the last 5 years just how good he is. And I think this year with the Cowboys, that rest of the defense is really rough, he's going to have the chance to kind of put that spotlight firmly on him and pick up this trophy at year's end. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's got a strong case, but unless Cam Newton has to sit out more games for this COVID reasons, or unless he just somehow drops off a cliff and starts playing terrible football again, the level of football he was playing before he had to go out for COVID was very high level. To think that he was sitting there in the offseason with so many teams that have the need for a quarterback, and the Patriots just pick him up for $1 million is insane. That gives everybody the idea that nobody believed he could come back. Everybody thought he was done.
I thought he was done for sure, but I don't know. There's a narrative out there that lots of teams passed up on him, this, that, and the other. But I have a hard time believing that, to be honest. I feel like Cam Newton, he definitely had offers. He was just waiting for the right time and the right team. That's my guess. It's just hard for me to believe that somebody would not take a chance on a former MVP, especially like a team like the Chicago Bears and things like that. I don't know. It definitely feels like Cam Newton waited for the perfect situation, and there's nothing better than being with Bill Belichick up there in New England. I do think because of the quarterback position, he has a better chance than an Aldon Smith to get an award like this, especially if the Patriots go into the playoffs. And, hey, they should have beat the Chiefs last week, even without Cam Newton. And if he was in there, I don't think anyone has any doubt they win that football game, which I think was a surprise to me and many others. So I do like that pick with Cam Newton there. I don't know if teams are going to kind of figure out this QB blast system they have or not. Seattle definitely didn't. He ran for how many touchdowns in that game? Maybe two, almost three.
I believe.
He almost had that third one,
yep.
1 yard line there. But I think Cam Newton is surprising a lot of people. His mobility is obviously something that people knew about, but the way he moves in the pocket, we haven't seen that from Cam Newton in a few years, mostly because of his injury concerns. And his shoulder looks perfect now. I think New England is about a receiver away from becoming a contender on par with the Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens. They have Julian Edelman right now, who's dinged up. He's a great player, but he's not that deep threat that I think the Patriots thought N'Keal Harry would be. If I'm the Patriots, I'm on a call with Chicago, and I'm getting Allen Robinson on my team as fast as I can. Seeing him with Cam Newton, I think, will be a great thing. And something I'm looking at the trade deadline. I think a receiver is going to end up in New England. I don't know who it is. If I had to pick right now, I think Allen Robinson is the one. And we'll see what Bill Belichick does. He always has something up his sleeve.
Yeah, I agree. Bill Belichick, genius. I mean, last year he brought in Mohamed Sanu, and that one didn't work out too well.
No, that didn't work out for anyone. The Niners and got cut like 2 weeks later.
Right.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
We'll make a move. We just don't know what. All right, next up we have Offensive Player of the Year. Now, last year this award went to Michael Thomas. Some people are a little bit confused about what this award means. It's similar to the MVP. However, the MVP is usually reserved for a quarterback, whereas the Offensive Player of the Year is kind of the guy who has the most ridiculous stats. Last year was between Christian McCaffrey and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas won it. For those hardcore football fans, you may remember the Adrian Peterson year many years ago. Peyton Manning won the MVP that year, but Adrian Peterson was able to get the Offensive Player of the Year award. Essentially, whichever skill position player, either running back or receiver, typically gets this. This year, nobody really comes to my mind, just from the jump. At first, I really wanted to say Calvin Ridley. He's having an unreal year there in Atlanta. Their defense is so bad that he's going to get many opportunities throughout the year. But he put up a goose egg last week against the Packers on Monday Night Football, the second game of the doubleheader over there. And I think that, obviously hurts his stock because we only are judging them off of 4 games. It's 25%. He had 0 catches, 0 yards, obviously. So I'm actually going to go with the quarterback here. It's a quarterback I'm not going with my MVP pick, so I think it fits still. I'm going to go with Josh Allen. He has 12 touchdowns, only 1 interception. That 1 interception was in that Rams game, if you remember. There's a jump ball over there, and the cornerback made a ridiculous play. He kind of took it from the receiver's hands. He does have a fumble issue. He has three or 4 fumbles this year, and he kind of plays like you're playing Madden, and you're kind of scrolling, rolling around. You don't know what to do, and you just press all the buttons you can as fast as you can. Kind of hoping for something to happen on 4th down. That's how he plays 1st through 4th down. He just runs around, tries making a play. He's kind of like a Brett Favre-like player, except he tries trucking even linebackers. He's ridiculous. He is finally on a team with a wide receiver 6 feet tall, Stephon Diggs, and a real deep threat. I think Allen's going to put up ridiculous numbers all year long, and he's going to have enough turnovers to prevent him from being an MVP. What do you think?
Allen's been having a career year, but I'll go with Alvin Kamara right now. Dude's having an unreal season, racking up yards left and right, and has 7 touchdowns before games. 7 total touchdowns before games.
Yeah.
Last week was the first week that he didn't have 2 touchdowns in a game because he only had 1. I think he's just going to continue to rack up the yards. I think that Saints offense is just going to continue to feed him the ball, especially with Mike Thomas being out. It sounds like Mike Thomas is going to be out another week here, and then they're on bye week 6. And then I think they're going to come back and still ride Kamara hard.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints offense, was built around Drew Brees for the last 10 years. But my man Drew really can't throw the ball down the field anymore. The average depth of his targets is less than 5 yards now, which is the lowest in the NFL by far. It's pretty ridiculous. But I think the Saints do incorporate Kamara a lot more, and they kind of continue to ride him throughout the year. I can see that for sure. But Josh Allen, I'm telling you, right now he is 3rd in the league in touchdowns, 2nd in the league in passing yards. He's just continuing to put up numbers. His style is kind of finally meshing with the talent they have on offense. He can't throw those yellow balls to John Brown when he's the shortest guy on the field, but you can to a Stephon Diggs. You can to a Cole Beasley in space. And when you have a defense you can rely on, you can take more of those calculated risks. And in college at Wyoming in the Mountain West, Josh Allen only threw 53% for his completion percentage his final couple of years there. And this year in the NFL, he has 70%. He's developing at a pace I don't think anyone expected. And I think he might ride that hype to a award like this because people weren't really expecting it, and that usually matters in award season.
One more Saints is most teams that go running back by committee have their better running back in for first down and second down, and then maybe bring them in for third down. Yeah. But the Saints have been doing it the opposite. They've usually had Latavius Murray in on first down, run up the middle, kind of get beat up, get a few yards, and then they bring Kamara in to soften up the defense. That does 2 things, I think. I think it keeps Kamara healthy for the rest of the year, but also puts the Saints in more manageable situations in which they can call a lot more play calls, which opens up their offense, opens up Kamara for continued big yardage success.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sean Payton, I think the only thing he loves more than football and coaching the Saints is Taysom Hill, and he just uses Taysom Hill wherever he wants. He tries to market him as his utility player, but to be honest, he's just an average football player in every sense of the word. And Sean Payton just loves feeding him the ball, so I think that might play a role in how Alvin Kamara does in terms of just the raw numbers, the raw stats, because other players on other teams don't have to deal with a coach hell bent on making somebody irrelevant like Sean Payton is. Like, he loves Taysom Hill more than life itself, it seems like. So we'll see how that kind of goes on, because I know he wants to market him out, especially with Drew Brees ending his campaign this year, probably not on a high note, and probably looking for a quarterback of the future. We'll see how he does with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. He probably shops one, keeps the other. So we'll see how he tries driving up that market price for Taysom Hill. But I think that's something to look at and pay attention to Sundays going forward. Next up, let's go with the Defense Player of the Year now. Now, this is an award that it's a little bit simpler to understand the Offensive Player of the Year, which typically just goes to the guy with the most ridiculous stats. Defense Player of the Year is just the best player on that side of the ball throughout, I guess, for us right now, the first 4 games. Last year when it's Stephon Gilmore, everyone knows how electric he was, how lights out he was. No cornerback posted a lower quarterback rating than Stephon Gilmore did last year. It is typically rare for a secondary player to get that award, especially a corner. His year was so good last year that there's really no other option. This year, I think there is, and I think that's going to go to Myles Garrett. Now, last year he had the whole helmet incident, and I think he took that, it really internalized that, and used it as a good source of motivation. A lot of people were laughing at the Browns, laughing at him, counting him out, and this year he's responded with one of the best starts to the season that we've had in quite a lot of months. Right now, he is tied for the number 1 lead with Zadarius Smith on the Packers for sacks with 5. He's 8th in tackles for a loss of 5, and he's forced not one, not two, but 3 fumbles and recovered 2 of them. He's having the most ridiculous and most productive years that a pass rusher has had through the first 4 games of the NFL season. And I think the way that the Browns are going to keep winning, they're going to stay relevant enough for people to keep tuning in and keep watching Myles Garrett just wreak a havoc on opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks. Who do you have so far for your defensive player of the year?
So on the Myles Garrett note, I think there are so many storylines and there's so many people on that offense for the Browns that I think it kind of detracts from what Myles Garrett has done this year. Because usually when we talk Browns, we talk OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Baker Mayfield, what's going on in Cleveland, run the ball, don't let Baker throw. All this stuff I think is kind of deterring from Myles Garrett. I think he'll start gaining steam. Another person who's just still always at the top, Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's always one of the favorites to win. He's a game wrecker. He comes in, sheds blocks, gets tackles, clogs up the middle. Anywhere you put him on the line, he's going to make a play. So my Aaron Donald is my defensive player of the year pick.
Yeah, I like that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think Aaron Donald, up until last year, I thought he was the best football player that the league has to offer. But I think now I'll give the nod to Patrick Mahomes. But Aaron Donald's right up there. The way he can just disrupt an entire team scheme and just play calling is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen. Aaron Donald, you can't put one guy, you can't even put 2 guys on him. He's just that much of a wrecking ball in the interior of that defensive line for the Rams. And like I said, like the Browns, they're going to stay relevant. The Rams are going to stay relevant this year. I think those are 2 names definitely to watch out for. And I think one of them does end up winning. It's going to kind of come down to whoever gets the most sacks and whoever gets the most fumbles and stats like that probably. But I don't think you can go wrong with either of those 2 players. Now, the award I think that's going to drive the most hype, drive the most narratives and storylines on ESPN and Fox Sports and all those talking heads on TV is the MVP debate. I'm not going to try taking a contrarian opinion here. I think there's really only 3 candidates here, in my opinion. That's Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers. All 3 quarterbacks have an undefeated record so far this season. I can really see the case for any of them. I think the turnovers distance Josh Allen from the other 2, and it's between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Now, at first, I was really leaning towards Russell Wilson, and then I was kind of thinking about it, and I realized that some of that is actually coming from the "let Russ cook" narrative that's been spinning since last year, really, depending on which circles of Twitter you live in. But also, it went mainstream this offseason with Pete Carroll even mentioning the press conference and into the regular season with Chris Collinsworth even making analogies to it. And I think that's kind of made people clue in a little bit more on Russell Wilson, pay more attention to how he's been doing. And obviously he's been doing great. There's no question about that. There's no real wrong answer to him and Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. But I do give it right now to Aaron Rodgers just because of how effortless it looks right now for him. He has a 70% completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Now, that's a little bit less for passing touchdowns than Russell Wilson has so far, but not by much. It's by I think Russell Wilson has 16 touchdowns to Aaron Rodgers.
And throwing to much worse weapons on the outside. Aaron Rodgers has been without Davante Adams for the past 2 or 3 weeks now.
Past 2 weeks, he hasn't had Davante Adams. He hasn't had his new Davante Adams, people are calling him, Allen Lazard. Last week, he was throwing to Robert Tonyan, who nobody has heard about, but everyone was scrambling to try picking up Tuesday on the waiver wire. He was throwing to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who has been a bust, to be honest, from Notre Dame over there, and just trying to dump it off to running backs here, what tight ends there, and it doesn't even matter who you put on there. Aaron Rodgers is going to make them look good and get them a nice contract to a new team in a few years. That's the kind of player Aaron Rodgers is. That's not to say that Russell Wilson has amazing talents at the wide receiver position. He still has a few raw players like DK Metcalf, but based off the talent Aaron Rodgers is working with, based off how effortless he's making it look, and just how deadly that team is, in my opinion, I'm giving the nod to Aaron Rodgers so far in the MVP race. What say you?
I think Aaron Rodgers looks like the better quarterback at this point. I think his offensive line is significantly better than Seattle. The one thing I think that's going to help out Russ, though, is not only the narrative of let Russ cook that has been building, and people feel like he hasn't got any MVP votes at all. Like this is his year. Everybody's on board with it. And then also his defense is not great. Seattle's defense is really pretty miserable. And after all these years of seeing them always be dominant, the Legion of Boom, they are no such Legion anymore. So I think Russ is going to have to continue to pass the ball to stay in games, which is going to boost his stats and eventually overtake Rodgers over an entire calendar year.
Yeah, I think whenever you see the Seattle Seahawks, the Chicago Bears, or, for a while the Denver Broncos, you just assume they have a good defense. You're just like, okay, this is a team, historically they have Pete Carroll, they have this, they have that. Like, you just think their defense is going to be good. But it's really not. They give up about 25 points to the Falcons. They gave up 30-something to the Cowboys. They let the Miami Dolphins go up and down on them for a few possessions there. Their defense really isn't that great, especially with Jamal Adams being hurt. Now, obviously, when you have Jamal Adams in the game, it changes everything. But their defense, it's not only that it's not really that talented, and they have injuries all over the place, especially at that linebacker and the cornerback position. So I do agree there. I think their defense puts them in a position where it makes Russell have to win the game for them. And when Russell has to win the game for them, he always delivers. And he can go on a 90-play drive or 90-yard drive, 12-play, 80-yard drive, pretty much at a flip of a coin whenever he needs it. So I can see the Seahawks putting in a position where he has to have more numbers. And I do think eventually he will win the MVP this year because he hasn't gotten a single vote. He's never been voted MVP, this, that, and the other. So I think if it's close enough between him and Rodgers, it'll end up going Russell Wilson. But a lot of that's going to be dictated based off of who finishes where in the standings. Lamar Jackson obviously won it last year. He was number one in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes won the year before. He was the number one seed in the AFC. It typically goes to the best player on the best team. And now we'll see where that lies, this year with Seattle and the Green Bay being the two front runners in the NFC. We'll see where they go 1 and 2. Obviously, this year is a little bit more important to get that number one seed because only the number one seed gets to bye. So I think that's going to be big right there to kind of determine who gets the MVP. We don't mention Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes for our front runners. I don't think you have them either in your top three. The reason I don't, obviously Lamar hasn't looked as explosive as he has in the years past. He's also a little dinged up now. The loss of the Chiefs obviously hurts him. Patrick Mahomes is interesting because his team's undefeated, but he hasn't looked like the Patrick Mahomes we know he is. I'm not saying that he's having a down year by any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely isn't posting the numbers that we're accustomed to. He struggled against the Chargers and he struggled against the Patriots. So that's 50% of the games right there. So I can't put him in my top three, but I'm sure he'll finish, top 5 at year's end for MVP. What do you think about those two previous MVP winners the past couple seasons?
It's very easy to see either of those two guys jump into the MVP talk real quick. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes could have back-to-back games of 5 touchdowns and 400-plus yards passing, and just like that, he's back in the MVP talk.
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson could have some huge games. They haven't done anything so far to eliminate themselves from the MVP talk. They just haven't done anything to put themselves front and center.
Yeah, and I think voter fatigue is very big. It happens in all sports, otherwise LeBron James would win MVP every year. Once the guy wins the MVP, the next year it's hard for him to repeat unless he just has a ridiculous year. It happened to Lamar in college, actually. He won the Heisman his junior or his sophomore year, and by the time his junior year came around, he had a year just as good, if not better, but he didn't win the Heisman. Just because people want to see the new flashy toy, the new guy on the block. And in this case, it's Josh Allen. But Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are those throwback songs you play every now and then with your friends. The 2000 Pandora playlist. That's kind of what they are right now. It's a bit of a throwback, and I think people are just getting reminded how good they are. So I think that kind of helped them compared to the recency of Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes' success almost hurting them. Strictly an MVP conversation, obviously, which neither of them really care about. They just want to win. We talked about the standings a little bit and how that impacts these awards. So I wanted to get your take on where the standings are right now, at the end of week 4, the start of week 5, and how you think they're going to finish and play out by season's end. Let's start with the AFC East.